communication is when 3 or more people work together interdependently to accomplish a task. A small group is primarily composed of 3 to 5 members but is limited to 20 people. Small groups are brought together to achieve a certain goal. There are 6 primary characteristics that differentiate small group communication with other types of communication. The first characteristic is group size. According to Myers and Anderson, for a small group to function most effectively, it should have a minimum of 3 members and a max of 15. In a journal article by Lowry, Roberts, Romano, Cheney, and Hightower, members feel more anonymous and less involved in larger groups than they do in small groups. The second characteristic is interdependence. It is the effects that you and your group members have on each other. Interdependence occurs in small group when members make a joint effort to accomplish their task. The third characteristic is performing a task. Without a task, a group has no purpose. According to Fisher, a task is defined as an activity in which a decision or solution cannot be made without the input of all your group members. This task is also assigned by a third party who can also evaluate to see if the task was completed effectively. The fourth characteristic is group norms. These are the guidelines or rules your group implements about how members should behave and how your group should approach its tasks as stated by Whelan. They are stated verbally by one group member, then agreed on by the rest. When a group violates a norm, the group may choose to impose direct punishment for breaking the norm on the specific member. The fifth characteristic of small group communication is identities. Identities are defined by Myers and Anderson as the psychological and or physical boundaries that distinguish a group member from a non-group member. An example of psychological boundaries is positive or negative feelings such as pride or irritation, whereas physical boundaries are like clothing or tattoos. The sixth and final characteristic of small group communication is group talk, which is the types of communication your group members engage in. Small groups will spend most of their time engaging in problem-solving talk and decision-making talk. Problem-solving talk is a discussion over the task at hand and one solution to solve the problem is chosen. Decision-making talk selects one option out of several options that are discussed to solve the task. There are 5 functions needed to make an informed choice in small groups, which is part of the functional perspective of small group communication as stated by Salazar and Hirokawa. The first function is identifying the nature of the issue. The second function is the minimal characteristics required of the alternative needed to resolve the issue. The third function requires group members to identify an appropriate and adequate set of alternatives. The fourth function is examining the alternatives found in the third function in relation to the minimal characteristics established in the second function. The fifth function is to select the best alternative with the previous 4 functions in mind. All of these functions enhance a small group's problem-solving and decision-making talk.
As with anything, there are some advantages and disadvantages when working in a group. The textbook goes over 3 advantages of small group. The first is access to a group member's resources. Some of these resources can include time, energy, and member expertise. When you work with others, you'll have access to more of these resources than you would if you worked on your own. An example of this would be splitting up the work amongst the group so you can all focus on a different part of the project. The second advantage is that group work offers diversity, and this can be broken down into informational and value diversity. So where a member went to school, where they work, and their expertise on a topic plays into the information aspect, whereas a member's group goals, mission, and purpose falls under the value diversity. And also, when you work with people with different backgrounds, you are then able to gain multiple views and perspectives of the topic. The third advantage that the book mentions is that it promotes creativity. This would be considered the brainstorming part or the storming stage of Tupman's model of group development. Members of the group exchange ideas and opinions to formulate a solution to a task, which helps to develop critical thinking skills. And according to Peter Vujakovic, group work should, quote, foster the development of a range of general abilities, which will help you to function more effectively in any working environment. So such skills would include leadership, time management, responsibility for the work of others, and of course, teamwork skills. As many advantages as there are working in a group, there are some disadvantages in group work. Sometimes there are feelings of group hate, and group hate, as defined in the book, refers to feelings of dread that arise when faced with the possibility of having to work in a group. Group hate can occur when a member of the group doesn't contribute, or if they decide to cause problems, which makes it difficult to get anything done. The second disadvantage of group work is task coordination. Whenever there's a large group working together, there's often a greater chance for someone to contribute less than everyone else, and this unequal balance of work usually makes it unfair to other group members. And finally, the third is putting up with someone misbehaving in a group. This includes things such as missing meetings, not completing things on time, or being a slacker. Most of us have dealt with slackers in some shape or form. Slackers are those who don't contribute equally or contribute at all for that matter. Slackers will often make excuses as to why they miss meetings or why they aren't contributing as much as the other members. They can be perceived as not caring at all about a topic, and this usually leaves other members feeling upset and not wanting to work in group projects in the future.
Next, we move on to small group development. For a quick intro for this, there were originally 4 modes of development known as forming, storming, norming, and performing under the McGrath theory. Earlier on, other theories were added at a 5th stage known as termination or adjourning. Each stage represents a new phase either of conflict or cohesion amongst the group and ultimately decides whether the group is successful or not. And moving on from that, we'll start with the forming stage. In this stage, it's really the introduction. Individuals will exchange names, phone numbers for contact, emails, etc. And this stage is where you just get a first name basis. It's like the first impression whenever you meet somebody, and it's always great to kind of put your best foot forward. Next stage, we move on to the storming stage. Now, once the group has become comfortable with one another, they start, flowing ideas and coming up with the goals and how they might reach them, which is going to bring in conflicts because everybody's got their own ideologies and beliefs. Conflict is just really normal in this stage. Every individual is just going to rather keep their own individual beliefs other than adopting a group mentality. Under Smith, during his research. And then conflicts must be addressed in this stage for there to be room for the group to move forward and get closer to their goals. In the norming stage, this is where conflicts start being resolved. You start getting a deeper bond with your group. You start understanding who they are and how they work. This really helps out in the progression of the whole group moving forward, and it makes things easier for the group. Next, we'll have the forming stage. This is where groups will see the most progression, and they'll have a really great sense of responsibility towards their tasks, according to Maples during his studies in 1988. And this is where goals start becoming reality, and it's going to bring a great sense of fulfillment amongst the group, and conflicts will still rise up, and you really need to address them quickly because attitudes change, values will change, and you need to make sure during this stage that you get them done. For the final stage, we move on to the adjourning. This is basically the end for the group, and there's going to be, several ways this could turn out. It could either be the group failing to get the job done, or they can make great friendships along the way, and they're going to want to keep in contact afterwards. And that would be perfect for future tasks or future group projects, and that way they have a familiarity with people they already had a group with.
The next layer of small group communication is how group members play certain task roles as well as the building and maintenance of those roles. After a small group is formed, certain qualities that each member possesses are put towards certain tasks that they are supposed to do within the group, and this is based off of, quote, a repetitive pattern of communication behaviors, as stated by Myers and Anderson, that are expected of each person in order to sustain and achieve the task at hand. The group can be composed of about 19 different task roles. An interpersonal relationship between each member needs to be maintained, as well as maintaining personal needs. In a study done by Skorvets and Weisfield, it was found that people with higher status were more likely to sit up straighter, quote, maintain eye contact, speak in a firm voice, as well as speak more often and criticize, command, or interrupt others in the group. The status of each member can be determined within minutes after the first group meeting, sometimes without even speaking a word or with little interaction. Another researcher, Ridgway, concluded that, quote, people who possess more valuable characteristics are assigned a higher status within the group, while others who don't possess a lot of these qualities have a hard time moving up and proving their worth. There is 6 types of qualities each small group usually possesses, the first being the initiator or the contributor. Otherwise known as the leader of the group, these people have strong communication skills, technical skills, and problem-solving abilities that allow the group to complete the task. The second type is the information giver, and this is a person who provides ideas that may be different from other group members but can relate to people on a more personal level, as well as they have particularly strong technological skills. The third is the orientator, and this person is someone who challenges ideas given about the task in a more constructive manner. They may also recommend alternatives to solving the problem, but may be referred to as, quote, the devil's advocate, as stated by Myers and Anderson. This type of personality might digress progress that has already been made on the project due to arguments or other conflicts within the group. The fourth is the recorder, and this is a group member who literally records the amount of time the group meets for and other actions taken by group members. Creating agenda for deadlines as well as future group meetings and updating the group about anything that occurs is their job. The fifth and sixth are 2 roles that are combined into one duty, and they are known as the encourager and harmonizer, and are, quote, most essential in affecting whether and how group members maintain their relationships. Reliving group tensions, disagreements, and adding humor to difficult situations is their role within the group. These members are also highly valued. However, within these different roles that people play in group settings, certain people may not be equipped for the role they portray or are given, creating tension within the group and a lack of progression. Leadership that is shared among group members is an alternative if one person cannot handle their individual role.
Now we're going to focus on conflicts in small groups. There can be substantive conflict, which centers on groups members' critical evaluation of ideas, solutions, and decisions. Affective, which centers on how group members' behaviors disrupt the group and impede progress toward task accomplishment. Procedural, which focuses on group members' use of procedures to critically evaluate ideas, solutions, and decisions, or confront disruptive member behavior. And inequity, which centers on group members' perceived imbalance between their contributions to the group task and the contributions made by other group members. Now, we're going to go over the types of, styles that handle conflicts in situations such as this. The first one would be avoiding. This solution is, basically taking the easy way out. Conflict's going to arise, and you're going to really just kind of like brush it under the rug and not really address it. The next one is dominating, and it's also known as competing or power forcing style, as seen by Stone in 1999. And this solution is where the leader who's trying to fix the problem is just basically trying to win the argument to end the conflict sooner.